The Not So Great Outdoors contains stories of a graphic nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
The outdoors are great, except when they're not.
Welcome to the Not So Great Outdoors. We're your guides. I'm Sab.
And I'm Piff, and this week we are discussing the Australian backpacker murders.
Dun, dun, dun. I knew it had to be gruesome because of your Insta post.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not fun.
But before we get into that, Sab, do you want to talk about Crystal Rogers and what's happening in Bardstown right now?
Yes. So our OG patrons will remember this, and anybody who's listened to the Sab stories that have dropped since we've started the podcast back up will know that I did a story about Crystal Rogers from Bardstown. In recent days, they have been digging and searching properties owned by the baby daddy. I can't even remember his name right now. It's because he doesn't deserve it, honestly. But
I feel like it was
Houck. It's like Houck or something last name. Houck.
Oh.
Is it Zach? No.
Oh, I thought it was like Brent.
It might be. Brian? I don't know. A white boy name. I don't know. Who knows? It is. But so in recent days, they've been searching property that he owns. And again, go back and listen to that episode to get the full story and kind of get caught up to where we're at right now. But there was a recent release from the FBI. Basically all it's saying is yes, we are searching properties owned by him. Yes, this is an active investigation again right now. But that's all that we really have. They don't really have anything right now. And even if they did, they probably wouldn't come forward for a little bit just to, really get it firmed in. So. But we will keep you guys updated. So if we hear anything, we'll let you know. Even if it comes out at a time that we don't normally release an episode, we'll probably do a special drop for something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's definitely one of those cases that's everybody wants to know. There's a lot happening.
It's crazy. And it also, honestly, her parents have been so persistent since 2015. They have never stopped pushing law enforcement to find her and to figure out what happened, because she was a mom, and it just is the whole thing. And I think they have custody of her kids now, and so they just want to be able to get that closure, not just for them but for their kids, for her kids as well. So but yeah, we'll keep you guys posted. I'm sorry I don't have anything really mind-blowing on that, but I wish we could say they found remains and it was in his backyard and he's in jail. I wish I could say that.
Unfortunately, this is real, not life, and not an episode of a TV show, so things don't move that quickly.
Yeah. So, but I'll be really excited if we can finally drop an episode that's case closed. It's no longer a cold case. Well, it's not a cold case anymore. It is an active investigation, but still, it's finally come to a close because, for the longest time, the family, they were hoping she would be found alive, but then it very quickly became apparent that that was not likely to happen. So now they just want to know what happened. And I mean, listen to the other episode, but we pretty much know what happened. But we just can't
arrest. We know what happened.
We're pretty sure.
Sure.
We should just go send this to the FBI.
I don't want to get sued.
Yeah, no. We think we know what happened.
It appears as though.
Yeah. We have made assumptions, which is what we do. On this show.
We're not journalists. Oh, also,
I am a journalist.
Not professional. Not right now. You're not.
Okay.
Are you operating in a journalistic capacity right now?
No.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
I was gonna say though. Hold on. I have the training. I have a degree.
No. We got a comment on YouTube that was mean.
I never look at the YouTube comments.
You shouldn't,
because they're terrible.
Some of them nice. This one mean.
I never look at them.
This person said that this was the worst journalism and reporting of a documentary he had ever seen, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. And I was like, we're not we're entertainers.
Hold on. This podcast is marked explicit, so I am not sorry for that. But fuck you, dude. Fuck you, dude. Fuck right off. Fuck right out of here. Get out. Yeah. Get out of here. If you're still listening, apparently it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Shut up. Good Lord. We never claimed for this to be a news show.
We are entertainers.
This is a comedy podcast.
Yeah.
We are under the comedy genre.
Yeah, and what gets me is okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, while I'm talking about, hi, You can see us. While I'm talking about dark and gruesome things, you might notice that it appears as though I'm smiling. It's not because I'm happy. It's because if I don't smile when I talk, I sound like this, and nobody wants to listen to that. We're a podcast.
She has serious RBF.
Yeah, and my voice is affected by it. So if I don't have happy face, you don't want to listen.
I have become horribly aware of my own RBF since returning to the office. Because when I'm walking from like my desk to the bathroom or my desk to the kitchen or whatever, my face is like, you can't see me if you're just listening to this, but it's just like,
it's RBF. That's what it is.
It's RBF. And I look pissed off. Like, I seriously look so mad. Also, shout out to some of my coworkers, I think. If you're here, hello, if you're listening. I just recently went to a lunch, like, with several people of, like, different departments and teams and things that we've never met before. And one of them was a director within my department. And she facilitated this icebreaker, but it wasn't like a normal, like, we're going to go around the circle, we're going to tell our name and a fun fact. She was like, no, we're not doing that. Like, no. She gave us
It's because nobody has a fun fact.
I use the same fun fact. Like,
what's your fun fact?
Okay. I cycle through a couple because I had to do this a lot in college too, for whatever reason.
I have one, so tell me all of yours.
So I'm left-handed.
Okay.
Which is a fun fact for a lot of people. Because if I tell someone who doesn't know a lot of left-handed people
that
I'm left-handed, they're like, whoa, how do you do anything? And I'm like,
the same
just
way
like
you do
with another
the other
hand. Yeah. But my dad also like wouldn't teach me how to play guitar, wouldn't teach me to do a lot of things because he was like, I don't know how to teach it left-handed. And I'm like, teach it to me right hand. It's not that I can't use this hand. I just don't for a lot of things. Like,
also,
I can use it.
I feel like being left-handed would make playing the guitar right-handed easier because your left hand's your hand that controls the chords.
Yeah. Anyway, so I never learned how to play guitar because my dad was like, oh, no, it's usually left-handed. And I'm like, that's dumb, but okay.
I know how to play with a guitar, meaning I know like 5 chords, but don't like ask me to play anything for you.
Yeah, but just, no. So I know like half to every contemporary Christian song. I know like G and C, and if you can throw an E in there, you have like every contemporary Christian song.
D
ever.
Also very
and
easy.
D, yeah. So
those are 4 of the 5 I know. I also know A.
Yeah.
I can't do B because I can't.
I know B is weird.
B is hard.
B is really hard.
We sound like we actually play guitar.
We really don't. We've played with it. Yeah.
I play with it. I don't play guitar. I play with a guitar.
Yeah. I make noises with a guitar. So I'm left-handed is one of them. I was a cave guide in college for 2 years.
Which we here at the podcast knew that. We've talked about that one.
We knew that. So I was a cave guide. I'm a published journalist. It is actually a fun fact that I use sometimes. Because I was published over 100 times in one summer when I was an intern, which was pretty cool. Shoot, what's my other one? Oh, the other one is the podcast.
I was like,
But I co-host a true crime paranormal podcast. And so with the icebreaker, we did 2 truths and a lie instead. And whoever guessed the lie first the most won. And so I won. I'm very good at that. Very good at knowing.
Do you want to know the key to 2 truths and a lie? People always make their truths boring. Or their truth's exciting and their lie boring, or one or the other. Like, you can tell. It's the one that's not like the others.
One-off.
So it's like, I studied sharks in Africa. I climbed El Capitan, and I love pickles.
You hate pickles.
Exactly. Yeah. You should know that because it's the one that's different. It's the one that's not really cool.
Yeah. So mine were, which is fun because I also went last. So I thought this was really fun because a lot of people made them super like vague. Mm-hmm. And I was like, ooh, okay. They were like tricky. Like the director, she has bright pink nails right now. Mm-hmm. But her lie was, I love going to the nail salon. She does them at home, and they look phenomenal.
Is it Olive and June?
I have no idea.
Like it's I
should ask her. But they
not
look
sponsored,
great.
but would be.
So mine were, and we'll see if the people playing along at home can guess. This is like a lot of banter for the beginning of the episode.
It's a really dark case. We need it.
It's fine.
I promise you're going to be thankful that you had this levity at the beginning. It's why I'm not stopping it. Yeah. Continue.
So it was, I was a cave guide in college, so that's a gimme. Well, no, they're all going to be gimmes. So my lie, I was a cave guide in college, I've been married for 3 years, and I'm a co-host of a true crime paranormal podcast. And they could tell I'm married because I'm wearing my rings. So, like, they know I'm married, but that was the lie. I've only been married for 2.
Yeah. It was the timing. That's the other thing. Timing. A lot of time timings are numbers that you just tweak them.
Yeah.
I have 5 siblings. I don't have 5 siblings.
No. So everybody's like looking at me and they're like, ooh. This one coworker I have like talked himself out of it. But at first he was like, you've not been married that long. You're too young. And then he was like, no, wait. And he like kept going back and forth. And he finally landed on the cave guide thing. But I've talked to him specifically about this. So I was like offended. I was like, have you never paid attention? Yeah. But another director who's of like another department was sitting right next to me. He's like, do you really have a podcast? I was like, yeah. And then the other director, the lady with the fabulous nails, love her. She said,
let us know where your nails get done.
Please.
How do you do them?
How do you do it? She said, you have a great podcast voice. I was like, ironically enough, that's a comment that we get a lot.
Yep.
Like that our voices are really nice to listen to. So that director, the director with the fancy nails, like 5 people that were at that lunch and like half my team are now supposedly going to listen to the podcast. So if you are, hello. Hi guys.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe that's...
Shall we?
Yep. Say maybe that's
actually
the key.
now
we
I have
should
to
talk
pee.
about this case. Okay, let's take a potty break. We'll be back after this short break. I'm just gonna play crickets here. Go.
Of this advertisement because now we have ads. Just kidding.
We don't have ads.
We don't, but that'd be cool.
We're not sponsored by anybody.
If only.
If you want to sponsor us.
Enjoy this brief Casper mattress ad or
Talkspace.
What's the other one? Audible. There you go. All right. To be continued. And we're back after a brief commercial break. Okay. I'm not ready for this, Piff.
Oh, it's all right.
I feel like I've been talking so much out of nerves because I really don't want to do this because you keep saying it's going to be so bad.
It's a serial killer.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of detail about the crimes, if that makes it better.
I mean,
I kind of keep it vague because I didn't really want to look into it too much because it's pretty gruesome. But we're going to start now. The backpacker murders in Australia is also the story of serial killer Ivan Milat. And there's a lot more to this case than what we can cover in a single podcast. So if you would like to know more, there is a book about this case that I did not read titled Sins of the Brother. And there's also a movie very loosely based on this. And there also might be like a TV docuseries. I saw that briefly. I didn't write down the name. If you want to know it, Google Ivan Milat.
I genuinely thought when you said, so if you want to learn more, that it just came out. I first thought it when you were like, so, and I thought for sure you were going to say, so this is going to be a 2-part. I was going to be like, oh my God, Pam, no.
If this was old days, would have done it a 2-part. I just cut out a bunch of stuff, so.
It's fine. Honestly, the multi-part were great, but I don't know if I could do a multi-part serial killer, like really dark killer. We did, though.
We did, like 2 or 3 times.
I know. I don't know if I could do it again.
Yeah, they're rough. This one's rough. But it is a serial killer. I got my Snacks and Serial Killer podcast t-shirt on.
I just realized this shirt I'm wearing says take a hike. Oh my God. I didn't plan that. I swear. This is the shirt I just grabbed out of the drawer this morning.
And that's where we're at today.
I also brought a hoodie because I didn't know if I would be cold. But it just says explore.
Boiling lava hot in this room all the time.
It's always so hot. I once brought a fan with me, like a little handheld fan. This is so hot.
It's hot in this room. All right, but let's get going and buckle up. Let's do this terrible, terrible thing. Ivan Milat, who's for some reason, I keep want to say Ivan or just say his name wrong. So if I do, I'm sorry. My brain wants to say his name incorrectly.
He's a terrible person. He doesn't deserve to have his name pronounced correctly.
Yeah, but all the other Ivans out there aren't terrible people.
That's true. Well, Ivan the Terrible.
Oh, well. If your name's Ivan, maybe you should just rethink your name. I don't know. So Ivan Milat was born December 27th, 1944 in Australia to parents Stephen and Margaret Milat. His parents married at 32 and 14.
What? I was really thinking you were about to say 40. I was going to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Gross.
That's an 18-year age difference for those of you who are not doing quick math.
Wow. You were literally a grown-ass adult whenever your spouse was born.
My notes say a whole-ass adult person.
We've been doing this a while.
It's been a minute. Okay. So yeah, that's just an issue by itself.
Who was older, the husband?
Of course.
Of course. Get out.
They raised their 4 children, although later I learned that it might have been more children. It was very confusing. But raised their children.
Raised their kids, yeah.
Outside of Sydney in a variety of questionable housing, including a cottage with a dirt floor and a large shed. Stephen had a wild temper when the children would misbehave. So did Margaret. But interestingly, in later interviews, Ivan would refer to his family as, quote, very close, like a family should be, end quote from the Sydney Morning Herald.
I don't believe you.
I don't either.
Childhood trauma.
Yeah, well, it's also like Bundy said, like, my family was completely normal. And then you actually like learn about Bundy's family. And you're like, dude, that's not normal.
That's not normal.
You're going to be so fucking shook by this goddamn family. And I don't use that specific very often, but my gosh, it's so bad. Okay. Boris, Ivan's brother, said the following quote.
All right.
Quote, he was going to kill somebody from the age of 10.
What? Boris or Ivan?
Ivan. What? Boris talking about Ivan said that sentence.
He knew it?
I have more about from this quote. I'm not done yet. Okay. So he was going to kill somebody from the age of 10. It was built into him. He had a different psyche. He's a psychopath, and it just manifested itself with, I can do anything, end quote. And that's just the beginning of the wild family drama that accompanies these 7 murders.
Just so you know, about 20-some seconds prior to this moment, I gave you a great facial expression for the screen grab. Just so you know, because you were looking at your paper, and I went. So that'll probably make it to Instagram. But what?
Yeah.
But also, he was not wrong, though. So what year were they born? Like, what year was he born? Like,
he was born in 1944.
Okay, so this is prior to the actual research between the psychology behind serial killers and murderers and like, but he said he had a different psyche. Like, he already could tell that there was something completely different about his brother. Yeah, Yeah. Ugh.
And I should say that the rest of the family disagreed with Boris calling his brother a cold-blooded killer. And
Boris is like the only sane one in this family.
Boris has literally been kicked out of his own family for talking to the press about Ivan. Like, they don't talk to him anymore. They don't associate with him. He's been like excommunicated from his own family.
Say it with me. Toxic family. Toxic environment.
Yeah. But I will say that for his siblings, at least, you know, when you grow up in poverty and in a household where both parents are different flavors of abusive, denial is to be expected.
Different flavors of abusive.
You know, like, dad worked a lot and then, like, had a temper when he was, like, just mad. And then mom was just, like, generally pissed off.
Yeah.
And that manifested in not great things for children.
No. Yet they continue to have.
They had possibly up to 13 children.
What?
Maybe as little as 4, maybe up to 13.
But there's enough gray area that we know it's somewhere between 4 and 13.
Yeah, he had at least 2 brothers. That's for surezies. Because we talk about both of them in this case. The rest of the siblings, I didn't care enough to look up to how many there actually were. I'm sorry. Do you want to know something else that Boris said about Ivan?
Always.
Trigger warning, animal abuse.
Ah, okay.
His brother also said that he heard at one point Ivan had cut a dog in half with a machete. I gave an extra trigger warning.
There's one. We need the other 2 points of the triangle. We need bedwetting and we need playing with fire.
Well, I imagine that they're in there, but I didn't go that much into his childhood, and I'll explain that later.
I'm sure they're there. But abuse to animals, bedwetting, and playing with fire.
But just keep in mind when we get to his human victims, the cut in half part, because it's going to come up in a terrible, terrible way.
No, never mind. I almost asked a question, but we'll find out, no doubt. So
we will.
Here we go.
He was clearly well known to law enforcement in the area. Yep. Throughout his life, he was in and out of prison for a variety of charges, ranging from theft to breaking and entering to abduction to assault of two 18-year-olds.
What? Oh my God. Because when you were like, oh yeah, he was well known by law enforcement, the first thing I thought was petty theft. Because like they always start with petty theft, right? Yep. It always starts with petty theft.
And then it just escalates.
And then it escalates.
He was acquitted from the rape charge.
What? I don't understand how that. Okay.
It was the 1950s, 60s.
That's true. I was going to say, wait.
We didn't believe women back then.
No.
We still don't always believe women.
We didn't protect women back then. We still sometimes don't.
So there's that.
Yeah. But also, the technology and like the testing and like the DNA and like all that.
There wasn't like, DNA.
The 80s is when that really started. And even then, it was like, so.
Yeah. But this does set up his pattern of assault and his escalation. And then I wrote, also, could we talk about the fact that so many serial killers have this escalation of violence and not being found guilty for it in their histories?
Oh, well.
It's almost like your behavior is indicative of who you are as a person.
Right? Actions speak louder than words. They're always smooth talkers, but watch what they do.
Yeah. And I'll say, like... There's a difference between somebody who is a petty theft, who's a petty theft, who's a petty theft, because they're probably just trying to survive, as opposed to somebody who's a petty theft and then
arson.
Yeah, and then it just escalates
like
to
car theft, and
kidnapping,
abuse.
and raping women.
Just saying, maybe there's a connection here. Like maybe there's a pattern. Just saying.
Also, you are literally going to laugh at the next sentence.
I can't wait.
He then faked his own death.
Are you kidding me? No. Fun fact about Pip, her uncle once faked his own death.
Oh, yeah.
I love that story. That is wild.
Oh, my gosh.
You definitely don't have to share it, but I just think that's so funny.
I'm not going to share any details beyond what you just said.
Like, but he literally did. And it was like, surprise, Shawty, I'm not dead. I'm like, what?
So, he fakes his own death, and he flees to New Zealand.
Okay.
Because that's
the other Australia.
The other Australia. Because that's definitely what you do when all of your crimes start to catch up to you.
Yes.
And then at some point, I think it was like 2-ish years later, he comes back to Australia, gets caught because his family turns him in.
Yeah.
He like saw his mom, and his mom told his brothers, and his brothers were like, you know my brother that you're trying to like arrest?
Yeah.
He's here.
He ain't dead. Come get him.
This family. So then he comes back to Australia, and then he gets married, and they have beautiful children, and that's the end. And we actually don't have any crime here. Just kidding.
I was about to say, no. But also, like, this family who disowned Boris are the same people who turned him in.
Listen, they have a complicated family dynamic. We're not even scratching the surface of it.
Because, like, when it comes to this, it's always like the age-old question is like nature versus nurture.
This was both.
This was definitely both.
This was both.
But if you think, if the nurture outweigh nature?
So here's my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. My degree's in math. I don't actually know anything. So take this with a grain of salt. But my opinion is that, so let's say you're born a sociopath. Yeah. Not all sociopaths are murderers. Not all sociopaths are serial killers. So I think that at that point, if you're born with, like, let's say less empathy, the ability not to feel feelings or something like that, then it becomes your environment. And so is it going to pull out your bad qualities and turn you into a murderer? Or are you going to learn through the actions of your parents and your peers what is acceptable in society and be able to be a completely functioning adult and not give in to any of those things that like possibly you were more innately born with than other people? Yeah. So I think it's both.
I agree 100%. And I do think that, like you just described, nurture can definitely outweigh nature. It just takes that like mindfulness and that like you know, as a parent, like, know your kid, like, and work with that and, like, figure it out.
Yeah. And also, it works on the flip side, too. Like, you can have a perfectly mentally healthy child
and
completely screw them up. So upon returning to Australia, after, you know, having to deal with the police and the assault investigation and then getting off on it, he did end up getting married.
Really?
But
I thought you were joking.
To his cousin's girlfriend, who was at the time pregnant with cousin's baby.
Okay.
And then that ended after 4 years because he's violent. So he was like abusing her. One of the things was like she had to like provide all of the receipts because he didn't trust her. She made a meal that he didn't like once, and he like smashed the plate on the table, took a picture of it, and like took it to his mom and be like, "Look at what this crap she tried to feed me." And then like his mom found it. It was a good relationship. It was very volatile, not great.
Listen, dudes that have like a too close relationship with their mom, like red flag.
Red flag.
Red flag.
Yeah. And I said it ended due to domestic violence, but actually it began and ended with domestic violence because do you want to know how he stole her from his cousin?
Probably beat him to death.
No, it's actually, in my opinion, worse than that. He raped a pregnant woman and then said, "Okay, she's going to marry me now, even though she's carrying your child." Yeah. I said it was worse.
I have no audible feedback. I just have my face.
Only bad.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep going.
Okay.
He also had an 11-year affair with his brother's wife at some point. Which brother? Boris.
Oh, poor Boris.
And his brother, Boris, went over to his house on 2 separate occasions with a rifle to kill him after finding out about the affair, but was like, "Nah, let's not kill my brother."
I mean, you might have done the world a service.
I don't condone murder.
I don't condone murder either.
But
I'm just saying. I mean, if that was a choice you personally wanted to make, I mean, it's your choice.
I mean, we wouldn't be talking about it on this podcast, that's for sure.
No.
Oh, and then this happened again with a separate brother's wife. It was either Wally or Willie, I didn't write the name down, but another one of his brother's wives he also had an affair with. This family. So I could honestly spend an entire podcast just talking about the wild, wild west that was this man's pre-serial killer days.
Yeah.
But honestly, he is such a piece of trash, and I would prefer to now talk about his victims. So that's what we're going to do, as best we can. As we all know, unfortunately, it is often difficult to find information about who victims were as people. He accessed his victims by picking them up when hitchhiking, as many of them were backpacking across Australia. You know, like people like backpack across Europe.
Yeah.
Same thing, but Australia. And they were relying on the kindness of strangers to get them in between locales. Some of the victims I have more about because I could find more. Some of them I'll be like, unfortunately, I don't have a lot about them. And I didn't want to dig too hard because honestly, if there's not a lot of information about them, their family probably doesn't want us to be talking about them.
Yeah.
So I do have their names because I do want to pay respect to those people. But if I couldn't easily find it, we don't have the information.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through his victims chronologically, and basically how this is set up, just so everybody knows, is I'm going to talk a little bit about the people, and then I'm going to talk about like when they found their bodies and what happened to them.
But let's remember, everybody, they caught the killer.
We know who the killer is.
They caught the killer.
It's Ivan.
Yeah. So at least there's that.
Yep.
Because we all remember the days of the early Initio podcast where we never caught the freaking killer, Pip. And we don't know what happened. Damn it, Pip. There were so many like that in a row.
A good time. Also, it is important to talk about cases that we don't have solutions on.
It is, but like 5 in a row, Pip? 5?
There were 3 in a row.
You said that with a question mark at the end.
No, it was 3.
It was 3? Okay.
Because Yosemite Murders was episode 3 or 4, and we knew the answer to that one.
Okay.
Okay, so his first...
So shall I pull up the drive?
Yes.
Too soon for that? Okay.
Yeah, the drive just has pictures, and if you guys want to look on the blog, we have pictures of all of our victims. We have a picture of the state forest sign, where that's the forest that they were all murdered in. This is the Not So Great Outdoors. Our stuff happens outside. You hadn't caught on to that yet.
Oh, and this is a picture of Ivan?
Yeah, and we have a very bad picture of Ivan.
Oh my
There are really good pictures of Ivan. Did I choose one of those? No, I did not.
No. Should you? No.
No. I do have great pictures of the victims, though, because they deserve good pictures. So our first victims, chronologically, were a couple from Melbourne, which is in Australia. Deborah Everest, and James Gibson. So this is from ivanmilat.yolasite.com. I'm relying heavily on this website for some of the information about the victims. It was kind of sketchy. Sorry.
So we're not 100% sure.
Yeah, but they're like, it's like, generic stuff. So I have a quote about Deborah and James. Quote, Deborah and James were both 19 and were not your typical backpackers. They were Australian and enjoyed the benefit of local knowledge. Unlike foreign tourists, they had no language problems, had friends and family to call on, and they knew their way around. James loved hanging out with the hippie element and certainly looked the part with his long hair that hung halfway down his back and the floppy hat he occasionally wore. Deborah had long dark hair and a winning smile.
She did. I was actually about to say she has such a nice smile.
Yeah.
And his hat, 100%. Love it. And the hair. Oh, yeah.
Yep. So the pair went missing on December 30th, 1989 while hitchhiking from Liverpool. This is the dark part. Their bodies would not be found until October of 1993. That's 4 years later. They were found in Belanglo. Honestly, I wrote this word so many times and never looked up how to say it, and I apologize. Belanglo State Forest by a man collecting Bengalo. B-O-L. Belanglo. We're going to say that.
Belanglo.
They were found in Belanglo State Forest by a man collecting firewood. The autopsy would later reveal that they had been attacked with a knife that cut through their ribs and spine repetitively. Do we remember the dog? He literally was like cutting them in half.
The amount of overkill and just pure rage and force that would take to cut through bone of any kind, but particularly the spine.
And it wasn't like he like stabbed this one. It was like cut.
Like psycho, like
cut through their spine. Deborah had also been beaten badly, so she had a lot of blunt force trauma to her face, like her jaw was broken. They were also partially undressed, and something that Ivan tended to do was sexually assault its victims. So sometimes I don't say like sexually assaulted. This one just says indicating some sexual aspect to their murders, because it could have been maybe they were too decomposed to actually tell. But if you're partially undressed and he had a proclivity for sexual assault, as we've already talked about, so it's pretty likely.
Two and two makes four.
Yeah. So now it's time for some fun facts, because we could all use some levity right about now.
Yes.
So we are going to be talking about the state forest that they were found in. And this is just a quote from Wikipedia, because this is not a tourist destination. And all of the other information, if you just search, well, how did we say we were going to say it? Belanglo. If you just search Belanglo State Forest in the Google machine, all that comes up is about these murders besides the Wikipedia page for like the first 4 pages of Google. So I'm using Wikipedia. This is just a quote. This is a fun fact break, so bear with me. Quote, Belanglo State Forest, the location of these crimes, is a planted forest of many pine but some native forestry around the edges in the Australian state of New South Wales. Its total area is about 3,800 hectares. And then I Googled what a hectare was, because I didn't know. It's about equal to 2.47 acres or 10,000 square meters. Continuing the quote. The forest is owned by the New South Wales government and contains some of the earliest pine plantings in the state. Wow, what a fun fact. The first radiata pines were planted in this area in 1919. The public has free access to the forest. It features 2 to 4-wheel drive tracks, creek crossings, and forest camping. It is popular among recreational trail bike riders. End quote. That's all I know about this forest. After this double homicide, he attempted his next crime against Paul Onions, and yes, that is his real name.
Paul Onions. Wow.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Listen, Paul Onions really brought it home for this case, so
really? Okay.
Yeah, you go, man.
Respect for Paul. Respect the onion.
So in January 1990, Paul was hitchhiking near Mittagong, and who should pick him up but Ivan? According to Paul, after being picked up, Ivan drove to the entrance of the Belanglo State Forest and pulled over. Ivan, by the sign. This is where the sign's going to come up.
Sweet.
Ivan got out of the car, making an excuse about needing to get music tapes, and then returned with, instead of music tapes, a piece of rope and a gun, saying, "This is a robbery." Literally? So they're parked by the sign, this sign, the entrance to the park. If you want to see the sign, go to the blog. Yeah. And he gets out of the car. He's like, I gotta get some like new like cassette tapes because I don't like these ones.
Where was he pretending that they were?
In the back. Yeah.
Why would your tapes?
Dude, nobody knows. And Paul was like, "This is a little sketchy. We have tapes." And he came back and he's got this rope and this gun. And he goes, "This is a robbery." So this is from...
You're robbing a hitchhiker.
Yeah.
Smart. They probably don't have that much value on them.
That's why they're hitchhiking.
They don't want to carry it. Yeah.
So from news.com.au, quote, "Onions, who had spent 5 years in the Royal Navy," he's British, "was instantly terrified, more so by the rope than the gun. As soon as I seen the rope, I thought, that's going to take a bit of time and he's going to do whatever he wants," Onion later said. "I just thought, this is it, run or die. So I undid my seatbelt and jumped straight out of the vehicle and ran." Onions had left his wallet, passport, and all of his belongings in the vehicle. Milat shot at Onions until he managed to stop a passing car by jumping in front of it. End quote.
Onions jumped in front of the car?
Yes, okay. To stop it, to like be like, "Help, help, help." Paul managed to escape by then jumping into that car.
And like, drive.
Yeah, it was literally like a scene out of a movie.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So the driver was like a woman. It was like a minivan. And she was like, "I didn't really have a choice in what was happening, but I'm glad that he was not the bad guy in the situation."
Yeah.
But she took him to a police office and he did a full report on what happened. He had to leave like all of his stuff. So he had to get a new passport. He had no money because all of his money was in his wallet that he left because he just was like, run or die. So he ran.
Yeah.
And at the time that he reported this, there were no cases to link his report to.
Yeah. Because at that time, the other two hadn't been found yet. Like that at the time that this happened to him.
Correct. Because this was the same year. This was like just a couple months later.
Yeah. As far as everybody else knew. I mean, Ivan wasn't a stand-up guy, but he didn't commit murder or attempt murder yet.
But at least not that they know.
As far as they know.
So his next victim was Simone Simi Schmidl. Well, everyone called her Simi, so that's what we're going to call her. So this is also quoted from that same website, ivanmilat.yolasite.com. Again, was it a little sketchy?
She's cute
yes.
too.
Yeah. I have things to say about her because I love her. And
I think I love her too.
Quote, "Simone was a young, adventurous girl whose family and friends called her Simi. Last seen in Liverpool, west of Sydney, hitchhiking south. The confident and seasoned traveler had seen much of the world." End quote.
Sounds like you.
I love her. I saw so many pictures of her. And every single one, I was like, I need to put this one in. I need to put this one in. But I wanted to have exactly one picture of each victim, so I only have one.
So much fun. And her pink bandage.
She's so fun. She worked as a young commercial assistant in Germany. She was German. And had been traveling with her friend Jeanette for several weeks before he caught up with her. She was outgoing, personable, talkative, and adventurous. And based solely on the photos I saw of her, she seemed like the type to grab life by the horns and ride.
Yeah.
She just seems so fun and full of life. Obviously, this doesn't end well, but she had such a beautiful life up until this point. So Simi departed from Jeanette on January 20th of 1991 to head from Guildford to travel via buses and hitchhiking to Melbourne to meet her mother at the airport. So basically her mom flew in from Munich and they were going to do one last adventure and then like go home. Also, I think she was in gymnastics because there was something about like a gymnastics team waiting to like greet her at the airport, but then like she wasn't there because she gets murdered. So unfortunately, the man who picked up Simi on that January day was our killer. And based on where she was found and the injuries found on her body, we can kind of conclude the following happened. She was driven into the state forest like the rest of our victims, taken into a clearing in the woods away from the road. Her spinal cord was severed, paralyzing her. And then she was awake for the following when she was stabbed 6 times. Yeah, so she was paralyzed, but like conscious.
Like you didn't build up to it. Like that was what you started.
That was the opening
act.
That
was the opening. Was severing spinal cord and paralyzed and awake.
And then you stabbed her 6 times.
And no doubt assaulted her.
Yeah. She was then covered with forest detritus, so like branches, leaves, ferns, etc. And she was not found until November of 1993 along a fire trail during a police sweep. So the following year, or later in 1991, Anya Habshed, 20, and Gabor Neugbauer, 21, a German couple traveling through the area, fell victim to him. We have a photo of them as a couple and then 2 individuals as well. I was really unable to find anything else about them besides like their ages and that they were German. So we just have to talk about what happened to them. And this is the most brutal of all of them. So I really do wish I could tell you more about who they were as people. I'm sure they were great people.
Please pause and go and look at the picture of them as a couple. Because they just look so sweet.
They look very sweet. They look very happy. Yeah. I mean, they're 20 and 21. Like, you don't really love like you do when you're 20 years old, you know? So, from the New Zealand Herald, quote, Gabor Neugbauer was gagged and shot 6 times. Anya was decapitated, put on a leash made from a sash cord, perhaps from Milat's mother's house, and her spinal cord severed. The couple's bodies were in shallow graves 50 meters apart, and Miss Habshed's head is never found. End quote. I told you it was that theirs is the most brutal.
Yeah. I can't imagine like watching the love of your life, watching them get hurt.
Yeah.
Because one of them saw the other.
Yeah. Do you remember the National Forest serial killer? I believe it was Robert Hansen. Because he killed an elderly couple.
Yes, I remember.
And we talked about it then too, like how I feel like it's even harder when you're the second victim in that situation because you just went through all of the emotional trauma and the mental trauma of watching it happen, and then it happens to you. Like,
yeah, and like while you're watching that happen,
you're next.
Yeah.
So the couple's bodies were found in November of 1993.
And he put something around her neck and like made like a leash.
So she was decapitated. I don't know if the leash was around her neck area
or like her
body. It doesn't. I did not find that. I didn't really look.
Some kind. Okay.
Yes.
So do you think he kept them? Like, what's the point of the tether? That's new.
Well, there were 2 of them, so control would be my guess.
He probably killed him first and tied her to a tree or something.
That would be my guess. Also, later we'll talk about this a little bit more, but some people think that his brothers were in on it too.
What? Like Boris in them?
Not Boris,
but like
Wally or Willie or whatever his name was, the one whose wife he also had sex with.
So he's gonna sleep with your wives, but you're gonna help him? Not Boris. So the one.
Wally or Willie, I don't remember.
He's gonna sleep with your wife.
Should have written it down.
And you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'd help him commit a murder.
I mean,
which is total speculation, but still.
I will say that Wally or Willie did have some, of the items that belonged to victims in his home, as well as the murder weapon. Because he said that Boris was like, hey, or not Boris, sorry. Ivan was like, hey, can I store some stuff at your house?
Always say no. If you have a psychotic sibling, say no.
He was like, yeah, I mean, you slept with my wife and I don't really like you. But yeah, sure, you can store your murder stuff at my house. That's totally fine.
Oh my God. So he was either framed or a part of it.
Or he's just really dumb.
And was framed.
Which is also, I mean, his brother had an affair with his wife and then he still agreed to help him out.
Yeah, so he is really dumb.
Draw your own conclusions. None of the other siblings have ever been charged. I'm just wildly speculating here. Don't sue me. Our last 2 victims were Carolyn Clark and Joanne Walters. And it's actually kind of cute. The pair, they met in Australia at a backpackers hostel in Sydney. And they were like, girl, you're cool. I'm cool.
Friends.
Let's be best friends. And let's hitchhike around Australia together because then, we're not alone. It's probably safer.
One would think.
One would hope. They were last seen on April 18th, 1992 at King's Cross Hostel. So I do have some information about Carolyn. I don't have really anything about Joanne because again,
Carolyn or Caroline?
Honestly, it's spelled in a way that it could be either.
It really could. That's why I'm asking. Oh, well, either. We'll say Carolyn.
They're British, so
who knows?
Carolyn is British, and then Joanne's from Wales, so
who knows?
Yeah. So Carolyn Clark, according to her father, and quoted from an article in the Hatcham Courant by Samantha Spowart, was, quote, a lovely girl, and she lit up every room she walked into. She had a huge circle of friends, many of whom have stayed in contact with us, her parents, which has really been lovely for us, end quote. So she was, again, just one of those people who everybody wanted to be friends with. And then again, I struggled to find information about Joanne, but I do know she was 22 years old and she was from Wales. So in my head, I imagine that they were like, oh, like I'm from Britain, you're from Wales, like same, neighbors, both UK, bonding.
Instant connect.
Yes. So they were actually the last victims were the first ones found.
Huh.
So they were found in September of 1992.
Okay.
Joanne had similar injuries to his earlier victims, including sexual assault, multiple stab wounds, the whole shebang. However, Caroline was also, shot 10 times through her head.
Oh my.
That's why I said sorry.
I got really.
I'm just sorry that I had to say the sentence.
The head?
Mm-hmm.
Like shot 10
It was like
times.
they had used her as target body, practice.
Like I've not. Huh?
It was like they used her as target practice. Yeah. And she was also stabbed and assaulted as well.
So we have a thing about like how they caught him, right?
Uh-huh. Okay. You're going to love it.
Good.
We're almost there.
I bet he did something stupid. I mean, he has done several stupid things, but I bet he did something stupid that got him caught. I hope anyway.
It's more entertaining than that. We'll get to it.
Good. So, but that was walk by and was like, "It's no."
But that was the order of the crimes. I'm just going to reiterate the order in which the bodies were found as we transition into how he got caught, just because they were not found in the order in which they were killed.
Yes. So then how did they determine?
Because of when they went missing.
Ah, duh. Okay, makes sense. Duh. Come on, Savannah. Think about it.
You got there.
Come on, Sav.
So on September 19th, 1992, Joanne was the first to be found by two runners 30 meters away. They found Carolyn. And then in the next year, October 93, Deborah and James were found. That was the first couple. Then November 1993, Simi, our solar traveler, was found. And then finally, our cute couple that we don't know much about, Anya and Gabor, were found in the same month. So later in November. So how did he get caught?
Yes.
Well, there are two things. First is his brothers and their big mouths.
Thank God. They're good for something, at least.
Yep. His older brother was talking about, quote, seeing two women being driven blindfolded into Balangalo State Forest, end quote.
And by his brother, surely.
And his younger brother claimed to have known who killed the Germans. So
his fucking family.
This family. The other thing that caught them was good old Paul.
Good old Paul.
You see, Paul
could identify him.
Yep. Paul had gone back home to the UK. But when the bodies were being found, he was like, I was attacked there. I was almost one of these victims. So he calls the tip line like a good person.
Yes. All the time.
And he's like,
if you know something, even if you're like, well, I didn't see anything happen, but I'm pretty sure it would have been this dude.
Yeah. Call the tip line. So he calls the tip line like a good citizen. A+ Paul. A1. And he goes, hey, this happened, explains the story, and says, I filed a full police report.
Yes.
This tip did go unnoticed for a while, but they were getting a lot of tips. But once they finally, noticed it, they were like, oh, we should look at his full report. They had the full police report because after he was attacked, he went in and made a full police report. So they had a description, they had a sketch, they had what happened, the make, model, and year of the car. They had a bunch of stuff. So a combination.
He even knew the year of the car? He must know stuff about cars.
I mean, probably not. I was just listing things that he would have had in the report.
But I couldn't tell you the year of something.
Color.
Yeah. Details. Good
details. He knew details.
Important details to know.
And he had gone the day that it happened, so it was real fresh.
Oh, yeah.
So the combination of Paul and his brothers and the fact that Ivan has what's it called? Criminal history, a mile long.
Yeah.
We get pointed to Ivan. So Paul was brought to Australia, and on May 5th, 1994, Paul identified Ivan in a photo lineup as the man who had attempted to abduct him. And then Ivan was arrested. Properties were searched, and not only did we find the murder weapon, but many items belonging to his victims. And I already said this, but I'm going to reiterate it. Were they just in his house? No. They were also in some of his brother's home as well. Because, just help your brother cover up murder. It's fine. There is some debate, like I said, on whether Ivan acted alone or if his brothers were somehow involved. The shooting of the one victim was highly contested by his lawyer because there were signs that another person was there. Ivan was probably also there too. But at his sentence, he was convicted of all 7 murders and he was convicted of attacking Paul. But quote, for the attack on Paul Onions, 6 years imprisonment. For the remaining 7 counts of willful murder, a life sentence for each. Ivan Milat was sentenced to prison for the term of his natural life. End quote.
Good.
I have 2 not fun facts to end on.
You tell me he was.
No.
I was gonna say I'm gonna flip this.
I was gonna say, and then
quit
a
this
third
podcast.
that is where he's at now.
Okay.
So first, there's also a possibility that he killed up to 20 people in total.
Good Lord.
But those cases do remain unsolved officially. But there are a couple of different articles out there. They'll be in the blog post because I did read them. That are like, here are some other crimes that happened. Same MO, same area. Could have been him too, but they didn't find anything. Any possessions of the victims to definitively link him.
Definitive evidence.
So it's possible, but officially those are still unsolved.
And here I was thinking, wow, of all the stories we've had to talk about crappy police work, like, look at that. Never JK. But I mean, not JK completely, though, because that was pretty good. They got the tip. They were like, hey, we should look at this and not wait 6 months. Good on them.
Yeah.
It's like the first episode that we can be like, good police work.
For once. Thank you.
I don't know, JK and Crystal Rogers, they're doing their best.
The FBI is doing their best. The FBI
is doing their best, yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah.
Do you want to know my other terrible fun fact?
Sure.
His great-nephew, also a forest murderer.
Good Lord.
At the ripe age of 19 years old, his nephew killed David, oh God, I forgot to look up how to say this. Ochternoloni. Sorry.
Wow.
It's got a lot of vowels. Who was 17. It was his 17th birthday.
I'm telling you, some people shouldn't. With an axe?
In the same state forest that Ivan killed his victims in. While he was murdering this 17-year-old on his birthday with an axe.
Said, I'm just like my uncle.
His friend recorded it on his cell phone.
Are you kidding? This is why I can't be a parent. I cannot. Right. Why? And this is why my kids won't have phones for a long time.
Well, probably he was legally an adult.
I know, but think of all the things that you hear stupid high schoolers doing. No.
Well, would you like me to wrap this up? I have one more sentence, and then we can go watch Ghost Adventures and forget that this ever happened.
Great. Okay, but this one's a fun fact, though.
Yes.
Right? An actual fun fact.
Well, I mean, it's not like,
not fun,
woohoo!
But it's like he's out.
It's not like, it's not like, and now there's a serial killer walking among us. No. So both Milats were sentenced. Obviously, the serial killer for the rest of his natural life. The teenager got like 30 or 40 years. But Ivan died in prison in 2019 from cancer.
I'm telling you, karma. So many serial killers have gotten cancer.
But that is the case of the backpacker murders.
You're right. We definitely the extra levy.
There was a reason I let it happen.
Sorry it took forever, y'all, but I mean, you're welcome. That's all I can do. That's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you buckled up tight for that one and you're still here. And if you are, thank you so much. As always, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll have new episodes dropping twice a month from here on out. So the next one will drop in about 2 weeks-ish. Give or take a little bit.
15th. So the 15th and the last day of the month is when you should expect them.
Yeah. If you haven't, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you do, send us a screenshot of that review to notsogreatoutdoors@gmail.com. And we will send you a sticker. Be sure to include your mailing address.
That's what I was just about to say. And also give us your address because I don't know where you live. That'd be weird.
Yeah, that'd be weird. Also, if you would like to get a sticker, but you're like, I've already left a review or whatever, feel free to send us your personal stories. So your paranormal stories, your true crime, your ridiculous rescues or whatever. If you would like to see the blog posts for this episode, others that have our resources, photos, and things like that, visit notsogreatoutdoors.com. We're on all social media now, pretty much, except Facebook.
And nobody cares about Facebook.
Nobody cares about Facebook. At NSGO Pod on all of them, including TikTok. We hope you guys enjoy. We love being back as much as we hope you love having us back. So let us know. Give us a review. Send us an email. Comment. Like, share, follow, all the fun stuff. Subscribe.
Also, I would definitely make sure you're subscribed before October because we got some fucking treats for you coming.
Oh, yeah.
October's going to be fantastic. It's August. It's already being planned.
Yes.
October's going to be great.
Well, thank you guys so much again. We hope that you've loved it, and we will see you next. In the meantime,
stay safe out there.
Thanks for watching. Music by Purple Planet. Art by Ruby Congrove. Logo by Catherine Dodds. For more information and our sources, head over to notsogreatoutdoors.com. For updates and announcements, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at NSGOPod. Don't forget to subscribe on all of your favorite podcasting platforms.